All right, next item on our agenda is the facility rental agreement.
Beginning to start to work on that at the building level. I'm assuming I'll probably pull together my facilities council one time in May to look at some changes and to get some follow-up from them, and then there's just some language changes, but no action at this time.
Okay, next item is policies.
No action at this time. The 5:125 we're still looking at. Policy 6:310. Pam is going to work on that with me. We have a few additions based on what classes we're going to offer, and I'll bring that to the policy council when I think we're ready. And then 890, we're going to try to have the RBEF as well as the Booster Club meet with the administration prior to an upcoming board meeting, and then try to come up with a reasonable resolution in regards to that policy. And so right now, no changes to any of the three that are mentioned.
Okay.
Patrons too, Kevin?
Yeah. They don't offer the passes and some of that stuff, so we could have them come as well. Pam, if you can invite the patrons to the meeting that Mary Ann's scheduling, 2 representatives.
Certainly.
Okay, next item is the memorandum of agreement between Cook County and Riverside Brookfield High School, District 208.
No word from Cook County, so no changes at this time.
All right. Next one is athletic department funding.
As you saw in the header that came in the board packet, we revised those additional changes to the 3 proposals. We had 4 proposals, we reduced to 1 proposal. The administration has provided 2 options to the board. If the board prefers that we need to reduce the size of the athletic program to align with the districts our size and more to the conference schools and schools that we're playing against, there's options, proposals A and B. If the board prefers to keep all the athletic opportunities available for the students, we have provided a recommendation that would allow that to occur as well. If you notice, there is a slight difference in the dollars generated by pay to participate. A and B generate about $100,000. That was the target. Where proposal C generates 111, and that's a difference of charging pay to participate 190 to 200. We went with the flat 200 because we anticipate that some athletes will probably not be multi-sport athletes if we raise the pay to participate to that high of a point. So there's some additional built in there that with the opportunity that will probably end up closer to the 100,000 if all opportunities are kept for the students and we just reduce the supply budget.
Any discussion on this?
Yeah, I have a question. If we look at 700 odd student athletes, we look at the spring athletes, that is the water polo athletes specifically, if they didn't have water polo, all 50 or so of them, they would probably have other sports they could get into. Because knowing water polo players as I do, they don't sit still. They want to play something. They want to play water polo. If they were absorbed into the other programs that we offer, would we have to add coaches to those teams to accommodate them?
Well, that was one of the, that's a new question that we haven't heard, and Mr. Ostro is not here. But right now, based on the evaluation that Pam and I and Art did with the coaches and the levels, we're at a point to where we felt we couldn't cut any more coaches.
Right.
So one thing that would have to be considered is if there's some of those sports are cut sports, would some of those students be, if they made the team? I don't think, in regards to, track is not a not cut sport. And I think we have sufficient amount of coaches there. We might have to add one if the numbers really grew on the girls' side. But I think some of the other sports are cut sports in regards to softball and girls' soccer, possibly. Pam, do you know that off the top of your head? There's Mr.
No, I
Astra.
don't.
There he is.
I knew he was coming. He had to have a dramatic entrance for us.
The question, Art, was if in the event that the board chose to to reduce the size of the athletic department, and some of the water polo athletes or possibly boys volleyball athletes went and played other sports, would additional coaches have to be offered?
Well, it depend on what sport. You know, you got to look at the sports that are no-cut sports that we currently have, and if we got above a certain number, then I would say, yeah, you'd probably want to bring certain coaches back. Most of the sports that are cut sports, it wouldn't have an impact, but I would say, take track, for example. If some of these students went onto the track team, we'd obviously probably want to add back a coach if our numbers got that high. So I definitely think it would be a possibility depending on what sport it was.
Thanks.
And the only no-cut sport right now is, in spring is,
Well,
Track,
we actually, no cut sport, yeah, track.
okay.
Not volleyball?
Volleyball was a cut sport.
That's a cut sport?
Yeah. I mean, water polo is not a non-cut sport, but if you got to a certain number, you'd obviously probably do that, depending on coaches. Tennis, we did make cuts for the first time, based on coaches.
Yeah. Water polo, it's a not cut sport.
It's a
now.
not-cut sport currently,
There's
yeah.
only one coach per
Correct.
per gender.
Right.
All right, any other questions for Art? Okay, the recommendation
Can I-
by the administration.
I don't have a question
Okay.
for Art, but I'd like to ask.
What?
Thanks.
I don't have a question for Art, but I want to discuss this a little. Is that
Okay.
okay?
Do we need to make the motion before we do the discussion?
Do you want to make the motion?
I'll make a
Well, we-
motion.
Yeah.
Resolve.
Do you know which one?
Which one we're gonna make the
suggest
motion
before you
for?
make the motion?
Administration,
motion.
It has a
yeah, but
blank.
administration, you got to pick a proposal, remember.
Yeah, we have to choose one.
Administration is recommending C.
The administration's
hear that?
recommending A or B if the board prefers to reduce the size. And if not, then the administration would be
That's
recommending
why I think
C.
we should discuss it a little more before
So you
we
might want to
the
make a motion first to decide whether or not we want to reduce
I mean,
or not reduce.
Well, let me,
And then the second one would be whether, what
I'll
proposal you
lead
want.
to that.
I'd like to hear this.
The first thing I'd like to say is, we get a lot of, criticism, no matter what we do. If we try to save it, the people who think we should cut to the bone say we don't have a stomach, we should just cut and show it, do it. If we save it, if we cut it, the people, all I think about is what Kevin always says. Every kid only has one freshman, sophomore, junior, and senior year. To tell you the truth, I told Kevin, I talked to him about this at length. I wish we said we were going to cut football. Not because I think we should cut football, but I think we'd have 500 people in the room, and instead of having the volleyball players and the water polo players have to beg not to cut their sport, we'd have the band, and we'd have the pom-poms, and we'd have the flags, and we'd have the football players, and I probably missed some, but all the people are there. And then we'd get a little knowledge of the broad support. Should we keep things, and should we not increase the pay to play? I'll tell you myself, I've not heard anybody who said, let's cut it and not increase the pay to play. And we have our economist here, and we found out that we didn't lose, we had higher participation this year. So, right, that's elasticity of demand, isn't it, John?
Well, variables have changed, so
Okay.
it's not a constant.
So, but, apparently people are willing to pay for it. So I think we're doing a disservice to the participants in a couple of these small sports, and I really don't think the rationale for cutting them, personally, I don't think was good. I don't think it matters what conference we're in. I don't think it matters to a water player that one sport, how many coaches they have at another sport, at another team. I don't see how it affects them. The only point I would support the pay to participate. The only other point I would make, we had a fourth proposal last time, which was to cut one level of volleyball. Again, not that I'm supporting that, but then we said we could do it for $190 instead of $200. If you look at the difference in the proposals here, the proposal C at $200, it brings in $12,000 more of revenue than the other two alternatives. So one option still is, if we go with C, is to charge only $190 instead of $200, and we're still going to have a higher level of revenue than the other two, and we still have enough funding to address the budget piece that you were trying to address with sports. So I think we should give that some consideration also, but I think we should go with the C and not cut any sports for next year.
Any other comments?
I have two questions, and I don't know if Dr. Skinkis or Pam have any families expressed concern on being able to pay for the sport, is my first question. And then the second question is, if we do have the pay to play at 190 or 200, whatever the consensus is, can students or can teams fundraise to offset some of that? In Little League, the kids have their raffles, they sell that, and if they sell their tickets, they can reduce their participation fee. I mean, are they allowed to do that?
Well, I think we have first of all, two questions. One, we
Right.
haven't, we've actually received more support for not to cut and to increase the pay to play. The second thing is we would keep in place the payment system set up so that all the money would have to be collected by the halfway point, if I'm not mistaken, Art. And we also have free and reduced lunch would be exempt from the pay to pay. So if a family fell under economic times, just free lunch. If the family fell below the economic line, the free lunch students would not have to pay that. In regards to the fundraising, a lot of these teams still do additional fundraising on top of what they're doing for the pay to participate to help offset uniform costs, warm-up costs, different awards or ceremonies, banquets, different things that they like to do. So I think we have to be cautious of that fundraising goes into the general ed fund, which is offsetting the cost that it runs all of athletics, from administrative costs to duties, fees, officials. So I don't know if we could actually sit there and earmark and say, hey, there's an additional 500, so now every athlete that plays water polo would be, $1 less. I mean, I don't think we can simplify that, nor do I have the personnel right now in the business office that could keep track of that and earmark that. So that's, to answer your question, I think we have to be cautious of doing that.
I think it's a matter of policy that the solvency of any program can't be dependent on fundraising. That's just the hard rule.
Anybody else wants to speak? All right, so we need to have a motion, and let's go with...
I'm going to give a motion, because then we can discuss this.
Yeah.
Resolve the Board of Education, Township High School District 208, Cook County, Illinois, hereby approves proposal C, the athletic department funding as presented in the April 2012 board agenda packet.
We have a second?
Second.
Second by Dan Moon. Any discussion?
So it's clear to the community, proposal C is to keep all sports and to have a pay to play at $200.
Per sport.
Mary Ann, can you enlarge that a little bit so if anybody wanted to see proposal C, they can see that basically the only reductions that would be made would be to the athletic supply budget, which was already reduced 30% last year. So all the other, to get to our 100,000, slightly over the 100,000 mark, would be subsidized through the pay to participate, increasing that to close to $200 a person.
And you're bringing back
2 cross-country coaches, because those are large participation sports, and due to the way that they're spread out over the 3 miles and the losses, we need to have some additional supervision there.
Could we consider doing the 190 though? Because we needed to bring in 100,000.
190 would bring in 100,000. The reason we put the 200 is because we think by increasing to that point, that's based on 880 athletes, and we have a lot of students who are multi-sport athletes, and that we think that some of that might affect participation, increasing it that much, as well as the second proposal you're going to see tonight regarding some of the extracurriculars, and some of those things are going to have fees to them, that we're probably going to lose participation numbers. If the board wanted to amend that proposal, it would not be a large change for the administration to say it's 190 instead of 200. I just want you to understand the rationale that we're building in there. So if the participation level drops significantly due to the large fees, and more kids maybe concentrate on one sport instead of 2 sports, that $100,000 could turn out to be 85 or 90.
Any other discussion on the motion before us right now?
my preference would be that we ask for the amount of money that would give us what we need and that we don't ask for extra, so that we try to hit the target as close as we can. And my preference would be for the 190.
John, are you willing to amend?
No, I think we should keep it the way it is. I want to discuss this. You know, I lettered 7 times here at RB, and I'd hate to cut anything, but I think $200 is steep, especially for people from Brookfield. Nothing wrong with people in Brookfield, but, you know, it's a different socioeconomic class in Riverside and even North Riverside. If this proposal fails, I think that we don't necessarily have to go to proposal A or B. There's things we can do on the margin here. I think that get that 160 or get that pay to play down a little bit. But I sponsor this motion because I think it's reasonable to offer this opportunity to everybody. Although I do have reservations about it.
Any other discussion on it? Mary Ann?
Ms. Ruska?
No.
Can I intervene just for, are we going 190 or 200?
200.
Wouldn't change, she said,
200?
sticking with it.
Okay.
So, if I just want to be clear then, John, you're saying that if it fails, then you would consider offering another, some kind of amendment to that?
Well,
Or
I
a
don't
new
think, we don't
proposal.
necessarily have to go to A or B.
Right,
We could-
you come up with maybe something else.
Right.
Hi, Mary Ann?
Ms. Ruska?
No.
Dr. King?
Yes?
Mr. Moon?
Yes.
Mr. Walsh?
Yes.
Mr. Welch?
Yes.
Mr. Gritchen?
Yes.
Mr. Cindy?
Yes. Okay,